Part 1. The diary is found. The wind howled through the trees like a warning, hollow and cold. Emily Sanders pressed her face to the car window, watching the endless blur of pine trees that lined the road to Willow Creek. Her mother tapped the steering wheel rhythmically, lips pursed, eyes fixed forward. "Almost there," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "Our new beginning." Emily didn't respond. Her earbuds were in, but no music played. Silence felt safer. Everything had been too loud lately. Her parents' divorce, the move, the final shouting match that ended with broken dishes and the slam of a door. Now it was just her and her mother, starting over in a town neither of them had ever heard of before last month. Willow Creek was small, sleepy, and seemed like the kind of place that hadn't changed in 50 years. Their rental house sat at the edge of town, past a rusted bridge and half covered in ivy. It was old, Victorian in design, with peeling paint and windows that stared like dead eyes. "Home sweet home," her mom muttered as they pulled into the overgrown driveway. The house. The house creaked as if groaning in protest when they stepped inside. Dust danced in the late afternoon light, and the scent of aged wood and forgotten things filled Emily's nose. The furniture had been left behind, stiff couches, a grandfather clock that had stopped ticking long ago, and picture frames still hanging on the walls with the faces inside faded to ghostly blurs. Her bedroom was on the second floor, small but with a window that looked out onto the woods. Emily dropped her bags and collapsed onto the bed. The mattress was lumpy, but it was better than the floor. That night she couldn't sleep. Every little noise, pipes groaning, wind tapping the shutters, floorboards settling, seemed amplified. At around midnight she heard a thump, then another. She sat up. It was coming from the attic. The attic discovery. Emily had always been curious. That was both her strength and her curse. The next day, while her mom was at work, she found the pull cord for the attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. A wooden ladder groaned as it unfolded. The attic smelled musty. Dust coated everything like a shroud. Boxes were piled high, filled with yellowed newspapers, moth-eaten clothes, and brittle books. In the far corner, hidden beneath a broken trunk, something caught her eye. A leather-bound object with a clasp. A diary. It was old, its pages fragile and lined with cursive handwriting. The first page read, "Property of Clara Dawson." Emily turned the page. "March 3rd, 1952. I hear them again. Footsteps outside my room at night. I told Mother, but she says it's the wind. It's not. The wind doesn't whisper my name." A chill ran through Emily. The first haunting that night, Emily couldn't help herself. She sat in bed with the diary in her lap, reading Clara's entries by the light of her phone. The girl's words were filled with fear, of shadows, voices, strange dreams. As the weeks progressed, Clara became more paranoid. March 17th. The woman in the mirror smiled at me. I didn't smile. She was wearing my face. Emily laughed nervously and closed the diary. Her reflection in the window stared back at her. For a split second, she thought it blinked. She shook her head. "Get a grip," she muttered. But that night, she dreamt of a girl standing at the foot of her bed, her mouth sewn shut and her eyes wide with sorrow. When she woke up, the diary was open to a new page. A sentence had appeared that she didn't remember reading before. "Emily, can you see me now?" She slammed it shut. Lucas Reed. The only person at Willow Creek High who didn't treat Emily like an outsider was Lucas Reed. He was quiet, lanky, with a sarcastic streak and a fondness for horror movies. They met in the library, both reaching for the same battered copy of The Haunting of Hill House. "You knew?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Obviously," Emily said. They bonded quickly over shared weirdness, and within days, Lucas became her only friend. One afternoon, she brought the diary to school and showed him. "Creepy," he said, flipping through the pages. "This is real?" "Feels real," she whispered. "Sometimes it writes back." He gave her a skeptical look. "You mean you write in it when you're half asleep?" "No," she said. "It wrote my name." Lucas stared at her. "You didn't tell your mom?" Emily shook her head. "She already thinks I'm fragile." Lucas nodded slowly, but his fingers traced the edges of the diary like it might burn him. "Don't write in it anymore," he said. Emily didn't answer. The writing returns that night. She placed the diary on her desk and promised herself she wouldn't touch it. But at 3:12 a.m., she woke up to scratching sounds. Not outside. Inside. The diary lay open, and the pen beside it was moving, slowly, carefully, like an invisible hand was guiding it. She watched, frozen in horror, as words appeared. "Help me. I'm still here. Finish what I started." Emily screamed. Her mother burst into the room seconds later, bleary-eyed. "What's going on?" Emily pointed at the diary. It's writing by itself." But when her mother looked, the pages were blank. Deeper into the past, Lucas helped her dig deeper into the town's history. They searched the local archives, finding old newspaper clippings. Missing girl, Clara Dawson vanishes, 1952. The article mentioned Clara's mother reporting her missing after weeks of erratic behavior. The townspeople believed she had run away. No body was ever found. Her house was eventually sold, torn down in the 1980s. But that's where my house is now, Emily realized. It was built over the land. Lucas paled. "That means the attic, the diary, it's been there all this time." Emily nodded. "And Clara's still here." The reflection. The next time Emily looked in the mirror, it wasn't her face looking back. Not exactly. The girl in the reflection had darker hair, older clothes. Her lips didn't move when Emily spoke, but her eyes blinked slowly, pleading. Emily backed away. The mirror cracked on its own, a web of fractures stretching like veins. That night she dreamt of Clara again. Only this time, Clara spoke. "You found me," she whispered. "Now finish me." End of part 1. Emily is no longer sure what's real. The diary is changing her, her thoughts, her dreams, her reflection. Lucas warns her to burn it, to get rid of it, but a strange compulsion keeps her close. The diary has awakened something ancient, unfinished, and hungry, and now it wants its final chapter. Part 2. The Diary Possesses. The days that followed blurred together in a fog of whispers and shadows. Emily Sanders no longer recognized herself. She moved through the hallways of Willow Creek High with a hollow stare, her once wide eyes now sunken, rimmed with sleepless nights. Her classmates gave her a wide berth, murmuring cruel nicknames behind her back. Ghost Girl, Possessed Emily, Demon Diary. But she didn't hear them anymore. The voice inside her head was louder. Clara's voice. The entries continue. Each night, despite every effort, Emily would find herself back at her desk, the diary in front of her, a pen in her hand. She didn't remember writing. Not really. But each morning, new entries would be there, scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Cursive. Neat. Precise. March 30th, 1952. The house won't let me leave. I walked to the door today and the handle bled in my hand. My mother says I'm sick, but I'm not sick. She is. She's the one who brought the thing into our lives. The woman with the bleeding eyes comes every night now. She says I belong to her. Emily stared at the words as her stomach turned. This wasn't just Clara's story anymore. The next entry was signed, Emily Sanders. Lucas sees the change. Lucas noticed it the first time she passed him in the hallway without a word. No wave, no eye contact, just a faint, chilling scent of old books and ash trailing behind her. He waited for her by the bike rack after school. "You're scaring people," he said. Emily's head turned slowly, as though it weighed more than it should. Her face was blank. For a moment, Lucas thought she wasn't going to respond. Then, "They should be scared." He blinked. "Okay, that's not funny." She leaned closer. Her breath smelled like mildew. "It's not a joke." Then she smiled, but it wasn't her smile. Lucas stepped back. That night, he went online and started digging. History repeats. He found a local conspiracy forum about Willow Creek's dark history. Buried among stories of missing pets in haunted woods was a thread titled, "The Diary That Kills." The thread dated back over 20 years. A girl named Marissa Lane had found a strange diary in the attic of her grandmother's house. She started acting strange. People around her died. Then she vanished. 10 years before that, someone else. Same pattern. Lucas's fingers trembled as he clicked through the accounts. Every story had 3 things in common. A diary, strange behavior and hallucinations, disappearance or death. Lucas slammed his laptop shut. Emily wasn't being haunted. She was being taken. The possession deepens. Emily began waking up in places she didn't remember going. The school roof, the forest behind her house. Once, she opened her eyes and found herself standing in the middle of her mother's room, watching her sleep. The diary was always with her. Even when she tried to hide it, it would reappear, under her pillow, in her backpack, once even in the refrigerator. One morning she noticed a change in the mirror. Her reflection blinked out of sync. Then it smiled before she did. Later that night she found a new message written in red ink. Let me finish what you can't. The first incident. It happened during fifth period chemistry. Emily sat motionless, staring blankly at her textbook. Mr. Gale was writing formulas on the board when the lights flickered. A humming filled the room. Low. Wrong. Suddenly, all the Bunsen burners flared, blue flames surging several feet high. Students screamed and ducked. Test tubes exploded, one shattering across Lucas's desk, cutting his cheek. And Emily, she stood calm, untouched in the chaos. Her eyes were black, not just the pupils, the entire eye. When it stopped, the flames vanished. The lights returned. Emily collapsed. Lucas ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. Emily, are you okay? Her eyes fluttered open, but the voice that answered wasn't hers. It's almost complete. Burn it. Lucas met Emily after school that day and pulled her into the woods behind the gym. He carried a metal tin, lighter fluid, and the diary, snatched from her locker while she was in PE. You need to let it go, he said. We burn it. We end this. Emily stood there, silent, pale. Her hands twitched at her sides. No. Lucas opened the tin, doused the diary in fluid, and flicked his lighter. As soon as the flame touched the book, a screech erupted from the trees, inhuman and furious. The fire leapt upward, turning green, then purple, and lashed out like a whip. Lucas screamed and fell back, clutching his arm. The diary had flown from the tin, untouched, smoking. On his skin, a symbol began to burn, a circle with a slit through the middle, like an eye bleeding. Emily rushed forward, cradling the diary protectively. I told you no. The woman in the mirror. That night, Clara spoke again. In the mirror. Emily stared into the glass, and Clara stood there, not a reflection, but fully formed. Her dress was soaked in black water. Her skin was gray and cracked. You're almost ready, she whispered. Emily shook her head. Ready for what? To be whole again. No, Emily said, backing away. You can't have me. Clara tilted her head. You opened the door. All I needed was your hand to write. The mirror cracked. You are my pen, Emily. The confrontation, Lucas returned the next day with a plan. He'd found an old journal in the local archives, written by Clara's mother. In it, she mentioned a ritual, a binding that sealed Clara's spirit to the diary to contain her madness. If we reverse it, Lucas said, we can trap her again. Not destroy her, but contain her. Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't think Clara wants to be contained. They agreed to meet that night at the cemetery, Clara Dawson's real grave. It was unmarked, just a patch of dirt near the woods. No one knew who buried her. Lucas brought the salt, candles, and the journal. Emily brought the diary, the ritual. They circled the grave in salt, lit the candles, and began reading the incantation. The wind picked up instantly. Trees groaned. The candles flickered and died. Then the earth trembled. Emily doubled over, clutching her head. The diary burst open and pages whipped around violently. Blank one moment, filled with screaming text the next. Lucas shouted, Emily, keep reading. But Clara was already there. Her ghostly form emerged from behind a tree, eyes black, mouth sewn shut with thread that dripped blood. She floated above the grave. You promised me, she whispered in a voice like broken glass. You wrote my name. Lucas threw the diary into the center of the salt circle and began the final chant. Emily screamed. Clara lunged. The salt exploded. End of part 2. When the dust settled, Emily lay motionless on the ground. The diary was gone, burned into ash at the center of the circle. Clara's spirit had vanished with the wind. Lucas checked Emily's pulse. She was alive, but when her eyes opened, they were no longer her own. Part 3, the final entry. The sky above Willow Creek churned with low-hanging clouds, a sickly yellow before dusk, the kind of sky that came before a storm, or something worse. Emily Sanders hadn't spoken a word in 3 days. She sat on her bed, unmoving, eyes fixed on the wall. Her mother tried everything, food, hugs, yelling, begging, but nothing worked. It was like the girl inside had gone away. Lucas Reed knew better. He had seen her eyes the night of the ritual, how they had flickered between brown and black, how her voice had sounded not like one person, but two, fighting to be heard. Clara wasn't gone. The diary had been destroyed, but something had latched on, and Emily, she was slipping away, a voice in the static. That night, Lucas sat in his room, flipping through the pages of Clara Dawson's mother's journal. He stopped at a passage that chilled him. Clara no longer speaks like herself. There is another voice, older, crueler. The diary was a door, not a prison. A door. That meant burning it didn't shut the evil out, it let it in. The static from his radio suddenly burst to life. Though it had been off for weeks, a voice hissed through the speakers. She's not yours anymore. Then silence. Lucas knew what he had to do. Emily's descent. Inside her mind, Emily wandered a gray void. The world was colorless, timeless, soundless, except for one thing, the scratching. It came from behind her eyes. The sound of a pen dragging across paper, over and over. Sometimes she saw Clara, a shadowy version bleeding from her eyes, her mouth stitched shut, her dress soaked in ink. But other times it was someone worse. A second girl, faceless. She didn't walk, she floated, arms spread like she was drowning in air. And every time she appeared, Emily felt something inside her crack. She screamed, but no one heard except Clara, who smiled. The whispering house. Lucas returned to the old house where it all began. Emily's attic. The landlord had locked it after the incident, but Lucas broke in through the basement window. He brought salt, candles, the last remnants of Clara's journal, and a mirror. He climbed to the attic, expecting silence, but the house was whispering. Words slithered through the air like threads of smoke. Write it. Finish it. Let it in. Lucas stood in the center of the attic and placed the mirror on the floor. Then he began the incantation backward, the reversal spell. The mirror fogged, cracked. Then it cleared. Emily stared back, her lips didn't move. But Clara's did. You shouldn't have come back. The possession fully unleashed. At that exact moment, back at her house, Emily screamed and collapsed on the floor. Her mother called 911, but the power cut out. The windows shattered inward, Nashbells, and all the lights burst like popping bulbs. Emily writhed as invisible strings pulled her limbs. Her eyes rolled back. And then she stood. But it wasn't Emily anymore. The final clue. Lucas fled the attic as the walls bled ink and the air screamed. Back at the library, he dug through microfilm archives for any mention of the second girl, the faceless one from Emily's visions. He found it in an article from 1903. Daughter of the ink. Local girl disappears after possession ritual. The diary was older than Clara. Much older. Each owner had added a part of themselves, their memories, their pain. The diary wasn't haunted by one spirit. It was a hive, an artifact feeding on fear and identity. And now it had Emily. The final plan. Lucas made his decision. He would go to the original source, the ruins of the first house where the diary was written. Clara's childhood home. It still stood, deep in the forest, past the old graveyard. He packed the tools, candles, the last page of the diary, somehow untouched by the fire, and a blade. To close the door, he had to make one final entry, not on paper, but in blood. The ruins. The forest swallowed all sound as Lucas reached the clearing. The house was more skeleton than structure now. Rotting beams, collapsed roof, walls crawling with ivy. But in the basement, everything was preserved. Pages from different eras hung on the walls, fluttering as if breathing. Emily stood in the center, eyes black, hair floating as if underwater, her skin cracked with ink. I knew you'd come, she said, though her mouth didn't move. You still think she's in here? You're Emily. Lucas stepped forward. I know she is. She's fading, Clara replied. Every word she writes brings her closer to me. One more page. That's all I need. Lucas pulled out the final page. Then take it, he said. The final entry. Lucas cut his palm with the blade and let the blood drip onto the page. He began writing. Clara Dawson is gone. The diary is sealed. No name shall be written again. No voice shall speak through ink. No door shall open from within. As the final word landed, the ground shook. Emily shrieked, her form splitting between herself and Clara, like two shadows trying to rip free of one another. The pages on the wall burst into flame one by one. Clara screamed. Emily collapsed. Lucas pulled her from the room as the entire house caught fire. Ink rained from the ceiling like rain, thick and burning. Outside, they fell to the ground, coughing, crying. The flames roared behind them. 1 month later, Emily didn't remember everything, just fragments, dreams of mirrors, floating girls, a voice always just behind her thoughts. But the diary was gone. Lucas stayed close. He had burn marks on his arms and a permanent scar from the blade. But Emily was alive, and herself again, or so they thought. The last page weeks later, a child playing in the ashes of the ruins found a charred piece of paper. He pulled it free. It read, "One last entry." His hands trembled. The ink was still wet.